Hello and welcome to the webinar, Productivity and Working from Home. I'm Martin from Evolution Personal and Corporate Development, and I'm really pleased to see so many people here today. There are people from all over the world on this webinar, which I guess illustrates the importance of the topic in this kind of chaotic, really, and scary world we're living in at the moment. I hope you and your family continue to be well throughout this pandemic, and that you're well placed emotionally to take advantage of any opportunities that arise for you afterwards. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be talking about productivity and working from home. What the issue with productivity is, how it is that some people are more productive than others, and how you can learn to be more productive by changing some thought processes and behaviours moving forwards. So as I've already said, please stop your video to improve the connection. And if you have any questions, please type them on the chat section at the bottom of the screen. So I will have a short Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So what I'd like to do is just have a quick check-in for ourselves, which is something that I think you'll find quite useful, and certainly you'll find useful in the future. So what I'd like you to do, I'll just close that. Get that out of the way. This is a reality check of where you are right here and right now. So if you think about your focus right here at the moment, and you score yourselves out of 10, where 10 is hanging on my every word and 1 is thinking, what did he just say? Just score yourself out of 10 for your focus right here, right now, and write it down somewhere. Scrabbling around for some paper and a pen now. Or remember it. Secondly, how much energy have you got at 11 o'clock on a Thursday morning? I'm not quite sure what day it is today. Negative numbers aren't allowed. And so somewhere between 1 and 10 for energy right now, right at the moment. And finally, how motivated are you to learn something about improving your productivity while you're working from home? I guess it's more than 0 because you're actually here on the webinar. So score yourself out of 10 for motivation. And then when you've done that, what I'd like you to do is multiply your focus, your energy, and your motivation together, and you'll come up with an overall score out of 1,000. You might want to do this later if you haven't got a calculator handy or you're not brilliant at mental arithmetic. But just score yourself out of 10, multiply those numbers together. So, what's the point of doing that exercise? Well, your performance in anything that you do, whether that's at work or at home or in sport or anything else you do, is really based on it's a function of these 3 things. So the more focused you are, the more energy you've got, the more motivation you've got, the more likely you are to perform effectively. So from a productivity point of view, the more focus you've got, the more you want to do it, the more energy you've got, the more productive you're going to be in anything that you do during the day. So this is something that you can take away with you to use at any time during the day. I'm not going to come back to it at all, but if you think about it, you're in control of how focused you are, because the thing that stops you being focused is distractions. And there are a couple of things you can do with distractions, which we'll talk about later on. Secondly, if your energy is low, that affects your focus. So you need to make sure that your energy is up to as high as you can possibly get it without drinking too much coffee or Red Bull or anything else. And again, we'll talk about that in a little while. And finally, motivation. So the more motivated you are, the more productive, the more benefit, the higher your performance is going to be. So we'll talk about how to improve your motivation as well. So let's just move on to look at how many people are working from home at the moment. And a little bit of research that I've done here will say that shows that in 2015, 4.3% of people were working from home. In 2019, that had gone up to 5.1% of the workforce working from home in all sectors, in all areas. And at the moment, well, there aren't any figures yet because it's so new, in the sense that I'm sure we'll be looking at those figures at some point in the future. So my own personal experience talking to clients is that one of my clients works in a big procurement department in a hospital. He says that 60% of his workforce are working from home at the moment and doing the day job. 40% of them are in the hospital because they need to be on the ground, and they're looking at obviously things like PPE and respirators and equipment and so on. And he said that, after this is all over, they're not going to go back to where they were before because they're seeing benefits from working from home. A couple of other clients I spoke to yesterday, 99% of their workforce is currently working from home. And that's happened really, really quickly. So it's already a permanent change for lots of people. And lots of organizations are thinking, well, we can make this work more effectively in the future. But that's the point, because it really has to work. If you're going to work from home, then it has to work, and people have to be productive. So if we look at productivity, and in terms of how you're being productive, or how people are productive, I'll just find this slide again. So if we look at productivity, research has shown that office workers are productive for around 3 hours a day. So that's only 3 hours out the whole day that people are productive. And the research was asking questions about what stops people being productive or what they're doing other than that. And the most popular unproductive activities were things like reading websites, checking social media, discussing non-work-related things with co-workers, searching for new jobs maybe, smoke breaks, making calls to partners, and so on and so on and so on. And the point about this is that when you go home, when you start working from home, people tend to be... Sorry, somebody struggling. So what happens is that when you work from home, people tend to feel like they have to be productive for 8 hours of the day. So they will sit in front of their computer and try and work for 8 hours a day. And that's really not practical, because that's not the way we work. We need to have that downtime. We need to have those breaks. And what happens, and what's happening at the moment in particular, is that 4 weeks into this, people are starting to hit a wall where they've been running on adrenaline for those first few days, first couple of weeks, first few weeks even, trying to get the thing set up, trying to figure out how to work from home and trying to make everything work. And now they're finding that adrenaline kind of crash is coming in. People are starting to burn out. They're starting to feel really stressed. And that will happen when you start to work from home anyway, because we're not used to being productive for that whole time. So it's really about, okay, so if we are only productive for a certain number of hours a day, how can we make sure that we're more productive for that time naturally? And there are lots of practical tips around to help you improve when you're working from home. And you can look on lots of websites for these. There's things like get up early, get things done, get them out of the way, communicate your expectations to everybody else in the household, because I guess at the moment, lots of people are working at home with kids at home and with partners at home, and perhaps it's a very different experience than if you were just on your own working at home. People say set up a home office so that you actually go to work in the morning, dress for work. I know people who put a suit on in the morning to go to work. They set up an office space. They walk to that office in the morning, so it's as close to being at work as it can be. Plan your day. Set up your office for productivity. Make it professional. Make it as close to being a work office as possible. Use the technology that's available to you to make it work. Commit to doing more during the day. Get yourself comfortable. Get a good chair. Pick a definitive stopping time so that you're not working over, and keep the TV on in the background. Not quite sure how that works, but there is that kind of background buzz as if you're working in an open plan office. The problem with that is that the problem with the practical tips is that they can help, but really it's about what goes on in here. It's an attitude. It's a way that you think that means that you can work effectively and more productively at home or at work. And so by trying to recreate the work environment at home, you're sort of fooling yourself almost that you're at work. And the problem with that then is that you try and be productive for those 8 hours, which isn't a normal thing to do. I think the most important thing to do is to accept that this is different than being in an office and find the best ways to work. Because to me, it's a great opportunity to really work on work-life balance. I mean, to be fair, I don't believe there's such a thing as work-life balance. I think it's life balance, and it's about balancing all those different aspects in your life. And the problem with being at work for 8 hours a day is that you've then got to try and put all of those other things into your life into play when you get home from work. Whereas if you're working at home, you can work your day much more effectively to be productive when you need to be productive, but also to work on those things that work for the rest of your life as well and keep everything in balance. So I want to look at how you can kind of change the way that you think about these processes, because this is the way that's going to make the difference. So back to the screen. So this is about how we think and how that affects the way that we behave. And, you know, the way that we think, our mind is affected by all of these things growing up, the culture we're in, the school we go to, the religion, our family, our friends, all of those things influence the way that we think. And our mind determines our beliefs. So we have certain beliefs about ourselves, about work, about the nature of work, about things around us. And, you know, let's just say, for example, that you grow up listening to your dad saying that, I don't know, all the managers in this place couldn't organize a whatever. You might grow up with the belief that managers are idiots because that's what you've heard every day of your life. Beliefs determine values, so things that are important to you. And you have a hierarchy of values where some things are more important than others. So maybe home life is more important than work. Maybe family is more important than friends, and so on. And if you believe all managers are idiots, you probably don't value them very highly. Beliefs and values determine behavior. So you behave in a way that's linked to your values and your beliefs and your perception of the world around you. So if you believe all managers are idiots, you value them very low, you probably behave in a very negative, aggressive, confrontational way towards managers. And you'll have beliefs about work and about working from home. And the thing about the beliefs and the values and the behavior is they determine results. So you get results based on your behavior. Behavior leads to results. So if you believe all managers are idiots, you value them very low, your behavior is confrontational, aggressive, negative, the results are probably going to be very negative for you. And maybe you find yourself getting sacked or passed over for promotion. And as you walk out the building with your P45 in your hand, what happens is that reinforces the beliefs that you have, because I'm good at my job, they've sacked me, therefore they must be idiots. And the problem with this belief system is that we unconsciously choose the behavior to get the results that we want. So if we believe that we're not productive working from home, guess what? We won't be, and we'll find all kinds of behaviors. It's not a conscious process, it's very unconscious. So what we need to do is we need to break that loop. And all of those practical examples of tips of what you can do to improve your productivity are about changing your behavior. They're focusing on behavior. The problem with just changing behavior is that it's only a short-term fix. So think about a New Year's resolution. It makes sense to stop smoking, to lose weight, to go to the gym. But once you're under pressure, nothing's changed at an unconscious level, so you revert back to your old behavior. So what we're suggesting here is that changing behavior doesn't work on its own. I'll talk about how you can make it work in a minute. But if we can change beliefs about what we do, then we only really need to change them once, and then our behavior will change, the results will change, and so on. So what we need to do is we need to have some information to undermine that belief that says it can't work, or it doesn't work, or that working from home isn't going to be productive, or working from home is stressful, or whatever those beliefs may be. So we need to get some feedback. And what we can do is focus on changing behavior, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and make sure we give ourselves some feedback to kind of break the pattern. So I wanted to talk about beliefs very briefly. And there are some people who are very, very productive at work and when they work from home. And that's about the way that they think about and the beliefs that they have about themselves and about what home working means. So, for instance, if you believe that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available, then what you're going to stop doing is beating yourself up for not working for 8 hours or for not producing that fantastic piece of work that you should have done. Because the resources that we've got at the moment are different to what we normally got anyway. So I'm doing the best I can with the kids in the room and so on. And someone was talking to me yesterday about her having a Zoom meeting with somebody, and her 3-year-old running in wanting the toilet and wanting some help, and that's kind of going to be the norm. But we're doing the best we can, and she's doing the best she can with the resources that she has. Secondly, everything that we do, all procedures that we do at work and at home when we're trying to work, should be designed to increase choice. So think about the way that we structure our day. So the more choice we've got about when we do things and when we swap and when we have breaks and so on, the more choice we've got makes us feel better and less stressed, because choice is better than no choice. If we feel we have no choice, then that puts us under pressure and causes stress. Thirdly, there's only feedback. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. If you believe that you can't fail, then really it's just information on what you know now, or what you now know what not to do. So the classic story of Edison and the light bulb, who worked out 600 ways, he said, of how not to make a light bulb. It just makes us feel different if we feel it's feedback rather than failure. If you believe that people have all the resources they need to succeed and achieve their desired outcomes, then you're more likely to try. And it's like, okay, so let's say, for example, I want a job as a lorry driver, but I can't drive a lorry. But I can drive a car, so there's a possibility I can learn to drive a lorry. So I still have the resources I need to achieve that desired outcome, if that makes sense. Number 5, so you're in charge of your mind and therefore your results. Because if you're not, who is? So you're in charge of everything that's happened to you that you've succeeded in so far, especially in terms of getting the work done and being productive at home, is down to you. But also those times when you haven't been productive at home, that's also down to you. So if you're in charge of your mind, then surely you can choose the behaviors that are going to help you get the results that you want. So let's just move on to 10 top tips. And these are tips based on the sort of stuff we've just been talking about here, about what goes on in here rather than just practical sorting your work surface and workspace out tips, which are still valuable. Don't denigrate those, they're still important, but let's look at these. So the first thing is to focus on goals. Now those goals might be a really short goal. It might be a very small goal, but if you have a goal to achieve during the day and you can tick something off at the end of the day, that can be really, really powerful. So focus on goals. Plan your distractions. So if you know things are going to be distracting you during the day, so let's say you know that the mail arrives at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so plan for that. Because you see that bill come through the door and you're constantly looking at it, that takes away your focus on what you're doing now. Because the thing about improving your focus, it's all about dealing with distractions. So either deal with it now, get it out of the way before you start work, or plan to do that later on in the day. So I'm going to plan to pay my gas bill at 4 o'clock. And any other distractions like smoke breaks or homeschooling with the kids at the moment, for instance. So schedule your breaks. Decide during the day when you're going to have a break. Not necessarily specifically to the time, but schedule them maybe after a particular activity. So I've got this meeting, and then when that finishes, I'll have lunch, whatever that may be. So that feels like you're in control of your day. Check in with yourself. So do the focus, energy, motivation thing. Because if your energy is low, what can you do to improve it? If your focus is low, how can you improve that? And if your motivation is low, ask yourself a very simple question, which is, what's in it for me? Why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of this particular activity? Finally, focus on your state. Not finally, fifth, focus on your state. How you feel is really important. So do the things that help you feel relaxed or calm or confident. There are lots of tools and techniques that you can use, and I will talk about some of those in later webinars. But focus on your state, because if you feel like you're able to do something, you're going to be able to do it. Look for learning opportunities. I'm not suggesting, right, I'm going to learn yoga or a foreign language or something during this time, but think about how you can learn to be more productive. So when you've had a meeting and it's not gone very well, think about what you can learn from it. Okay, how can I do that better next time? What can I do differently next time? Number 7, exercise. Take a break, go for a walk, get some fresh air. That's one of the great things about working at home, is that you can go outside during a break. When you work in an office, the only good thing about smoking these days is that you have to leave the building to have a cigarette. And it's kind of socially acceptable to do that. It's less acceptable for non-smokers to go out and stand around outside for 5 minutes, although the benefit of doing that in terms of increasing your focus and your energy is huge. So get some exercise. Not talking about a big cycling or running or whatever, just 5 minutes out in the garden, move around and do something different. Be creative. Use the downtime in between the activities you have to do at work to be creative. Just do something. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, maybe think about a different way of delivering information, draw something. It doesn't matter, but creativity can really help you improve your productivity. Talk to people. Fundamentally, this is one of the best benefits of going to work and working in an office or working with a group of people. It's the sociability of that's really effective. And the social isolation, by definition, means that we're not talking to as many people. So meet people, have Zoom meetings, have virtual coffee breaks with people, have lunch with people down the line. It's something that this lockdown has done for us is made us a lot more effective and a lot more used to working in this kind of environment. I have lots of coffee meetings with people. I have go for a beer with people in the evening sometimes. We have quizzes with friends and so on. So talk to people. It's really, really important. Number 10, remember you can't be productive for 8 hours. So if you sit down and you try and work for 8 hours, all that happens is you get tired. And when you get tired, you become less productive. If your energy level is low, you're less productive. You know what it's like at the end of the day, you're feeling tired, you can't resolve something, you go home, you come back in the morning and straight away you can resolve it because you're not tired. So you can't be productive for 8 hours, but be as productive as you can in those hours that you can be. So focus on goals, focus on output rather than time of actual activity. So they're the 10 top tips. And the final one is get some support. Talk to somebody who knows about this stuff. Talk to a coach, talk to a counselor, somebody who doesn't have any agenda or any judgment. Look at these kind of webinars. One of the things that we're offering at the moment, and we've had a few clients take up on, is having buying hours off us per month, so we can have one-to-ones with people who are struggling with their productivity working from home, or with their ability to manage people who they can't see anymore because they're suddenly sort of managing virtual teams. So feel free to get in touch and ask any more questions from us. On our website, we have a resources page, which is kind of new, but will probably stay there now. And we've got things like a mindfulness check-in download so that you can help you focus on your work when you need to be productive. We've got a resilience webinar that we ran last week on there, and this one will be recorded and uploaded at some point over the next few days. We've also, our time management online course is free at the moment, so can help you to plan when you're going to be productive and not productive, help you to prioritize those really important things and the less important things as you go through the day. And the next webinar I'm going to be running will be around that life balance. It will be about balancing all of those different elements together. That'll be probably in the next week or so. We haven't actually finalized the date for that. So I hope you've found this interesting and useful. As I said, those positive, practical tips that you can find everywhere are really, really helpful. But I think what's more helpful is changing the way you think and changing the way that you think about those kind of key areas. Because at the end of the day, having a home office is fantastic. You don't need one to still be productive. You need to have the right mindset to be productive. So thank you for listening. Thank you for taking part. If anybody's got any questions, please just post them at the bottom. That would be really helpful. And I'll stop that share so that I can just see everybody. So if anybody's got any questions, please feel free to ask them. I know somebody's had to leave early because that didn't work. Good. Okay. Thank you, Dolly. Yeah, I think output is really, really important. I think that does make a big difference. Anybody else got any questions? Okay. So feel free to contact me You can contact me through the website, or you can email me. You got my email address when I sent you all of this information. So good luck with your working from home. I hope you can be as productive as you need to be, and as stress-free as you can possibly be. And I hope you stay well. So stay safe, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.